I'm Hemant.
I'm Jessica.
And we're here for the Friendly Atheist podcast. We thought that since this is the last episode of the year, or the first episode of the new year, whenever this comes out.
Sundays?
Yeah. So we figured we would just answer a lot of questions. So on Facebook, I asked people, what are the things you struggle the most with answering as an atheist? And hundreds of you commented. And what's funny, I didn't tell Jessica any of the questions.
No,
I wrote down
I'm really nervous.
I wrote down a bunch of the ones that seemed to be popping up. What was really funny is that there are a lot of questions that were just repeated. A lot of people struggle with these same things. So we kind of, I jotted down a rough versions of some of these questions. So we thought we'd go through a bunch of them and just kind of discuss them, because a lot of the same things come up time and time again, not just questions you deal with as an atheist, but even on the website, the issues that we write about are often fairly the same issues, just coming up year in, year out. So let me start off with this first one. What do you say to people who, when you tell them you're an atheist, they say, are you comfortable with the thought of burning in hell for all eternity?
Oh my God, nobody's ever said that to me. Has anyone said that to you?
No one said that one to me, but I've gotten variations of that where they're like, are you afraid of what's going to happen when you die?
Threat.
Yeah. Aren't you afraid? The Pascal's wager sort of thing. Yeah. And part of me is like, no, I'm not afraid of burning in hell. I don't think you understand what atheism means.
I think that's always a problem when you're talking to people who don't fundamentally understand what atheism is, right? Like,
what do you think they think it is?
They think that we are rejecting God, as opposed to, I just don't believe God exists.
Yeah, that we think God exists and we're rejecting his power.
Or are Satan worshipers or whatever.
It's funny, there are actually polls that say, okay, you're an atheist. Do you believe in heaven? Do you believe in hell? Do you believe in prayer? And the answer is like, not 0%.
Oh, no.
There are some atheists who believe in things. I have gotten questions from people on Facebook. They will say, can you be an atheist who believes in ghosts? And my response is usually the same, which is that it's unusual. You would think, I mean, I'm an atheist because I reject the supernatural. I don't believe there's any evidence of the supernatural. So supernatural encompasses all of that. But there are people out there who might say, no, I don't believe in God's existence. But maybe there are other forms of the supernatural out there.
I mean, to that, I would say that firsthand observations are a hell of a thing, because you can be 100% sure you saw something, but like objectively, maybe you understand that like eyewitness testimony is unreliable, or we see what we want to see, or things are tainted, or whatever. But like, I feel like if you have that firsthand experience,
I felt it, so I don't know what a better explanation is, if not for the supernatural.
Right. So, okay, let's get back to the root question.
Yeah. Are you comfortable with the thought of burning in hell for all of eternity? If someone said that to you as an atheist, what would you say back to them?
I mean, it depends so much on circumstance.
Yeah. If who's asking it? Were they asking you?
So if it's like somebody who I am comfortable having a dialogue with, I would be very forthright and be like, well, I don't believe that's a thing, so it's not something that registers. It's not even a possibility in my head that like, oh my God, there's a fiery pit and a guy with horns. Like that's just not even a thing. But somebody who maybe I don't know that well, I think I'd be maybe hold their hand a little bit, like, and say the same idea. Like, well, in the same way, I don't believe that there's a God. I don't believe that there is a punishment after our life, and so I don't believe in heaven and I don't believe in hell. Those, to me, when you die, you die.
Yeah. If God wants to know why I didn't believe in him, the answer is because I looked for the evidence. I didn't see any. It's not like I said, oh, you exist, screw you. No, it was, I looked for the evidence. I was open to it. Sure. I think any honest atheist would say, I'm open to the evidence. I just haven't found it.
Right.
And if you're going to torture me for all of eternity because I dared to say, where's the evidence? I mean, then God is fucked up.
Yeah. No, I think I would continue to, I think the idea of like, I believe when I die, my life is over. And like, yeah, you can talk about existential, like you live on memories of other people or whatever. But, I think that's kind of what I always say. It's like, when I die, I'm dead and it's done. So I'm not concerned about what happens after that.
Yeah, let me try to do my best in this life. We'll deal with the aftermath when we get there.
Right.
Okay, here's the next one.
Okay.
I'm going to paraphrase this one, but the question is basically, I have a kid, I live in the South, And the question is, how do you talk to your children? Because you know they're going to go to school, they're going to talk to friends who are religious, and they're going to start asking you as parents questions about, why don't we go to church? Why don't we believe in God? Is there something wrong with me? How do you talk to your kids about religion, especially when you live in a community where everyone's super religious?
Well, as somebody with 0 children who lives in a very liberal city,
We are
I have
experts
so
in
many
this matter.
thoughts on this. I mean, I don't know. I think there is an element of making sure kids understand that different people believe different things. Because honestly, to me, when I was growing up, I would go to church with some friends. I lived in a really Catholic community. My family wasn't, or my parents were raised Catholic, but anyway. And it wasn't until I was like in college that I actually had a full understanding of, would you just open the can?
I will open the can.
That there's a full understanding that people actually genuinely believed it. So I'm coming from such a different standpoint of like, we didn't really talk about it. So I feel there's nothing, unless to say like some people believe this and they believe it sincerely, and that is fine. And live and let live. If they start, coming at you, it's a different story. But there's no need to denigrate a kid in, your second grader to go. Like,
You're not going to teach your atheist kid, let me tell you how to,
Right.
tear down this Christian at your school, this little 8-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of saying live and let live until somebody is starting to like threaten you or be aggressive at you, and then that's maybe an authority figure.
And I think one of the problems that sometimes happens too is maybe a kid comes to you and says, this is what my friend told me about God, about Jesus. What do you do, mom, dad? And there's such a temptation as an atheist to say that kid is wrong, or your teacher is wrong because you go to that type of school, or whatever adult told you this is wrong. And here's the problem with that. I think a lot of atheists would agree. You don't want to indoctrinate your child into atheism any more than you want to see other kids indoctrinated into religion. So there's a danger in telling that kid, your friend is wrong, God doesn't exist, especially when they're too young to really understand what the question's asking.
Right.
So when you tell them, no, God doesn't exist, that's the answer. I think that's a mistake too. And again, I'm saying this just like you. I have a kid who's not old enough to deal with this, and I live in a liberal area. So, okay. That said, one way I've seen it handled, Dale McGowan, who wrote the book Parenting Beyond Belief.
Wasn't he like one of our first guests?
He was one of our first guests. He's awesome. But he's written a lot about parenting. And one thing that he talks about that I really appreciate is he says, if your kid comes up to you, Mommy, Daddy, I believe in heaven, I believe in God, you don't want to dismiss that.
Right.
And you don't want to say they're right.
Right.
So what do? You play devil's advocate with the kid. Oh, you believe in this stuff. Why? Why do you believe in God? And hear what they have to say. It may not make any logical sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense when 30-year-olds say it. It's not going to make sense when an 8-year-old says it. But okay, you hear them out.
Yeah.
Here's why they think God exists. If they say, here's why I believe in heaven. Okay, why do you think heaven exists? Well, because God's hiding in the clouds. Okay, and what happens when it's raining? What happens at night? What do you think about all these things? Just to get them thinking about this stuff.
But to be honest, like really honestly, if your kid came up to you and was like, I don't believe in God, do you think you would play devil's advocate with that?
Yes, and here's the flip side of that. Maybe, and this is what happened in Dale's case, he said, and the kid came back later on, maybe a week or two later, and said, I don't think I believe in heaven. I don't think I believe in God. It would be the wrong thing, Dale says, to just say, good, you're right. No, it's, oh, really? Why
so
don't you believe in God? Why don't you believe in this stuff? I mean, where do we go when we die? And play the same devil's advocate with them, because the goal is not to teach them one way is right, because you're making the same mistake a lot of religious parents do, but to get them asking good questions, because the thinking here is, if they know how to ask good questions, they'll probably become atheists anyway. Yeah. But at least if they become religious, they know how to ask questions, and they're not just accepting the stuff on blind faith. You want to teach them how to think.
Sure.
So if a kid comes to you in the South and says, my friend taught me this or whatever, you can challenge them on it. That's fine. But challenge them if they go the other way, too. The goal is not to say, hey, 8-year-old, you're right, you're wrong. It's to get them to learn how to ask good questions and make them have the conversation with their friends.
Yeah.
I think you're going to end up at a better spot if that's the method you're using. Now, again,
I
all
bet
that
that's
sounds
hard in
great.
practice,
Yeah,
though.
it all sounds great in theory. Who
Yeah.
knows how that actually works? But I suspect you're going to be better off that way, especially because you know that kid's going to go back to school, and you don't want the kid starting a fight, and you don't want the teacher,
Well,
the
you
kid, you don't want the kid saying to like the teacher or the friend, like, "Oh yeah, no, my parents said God doesn't exist." Ha ha. It's like, oh, now you're just setting yourself up for a world of trouble.
And you're using your kids as mouthpieces
Right.
for yourself, and that's gross.
And
too.
we would cringe if religious people do it, so you don't
Oh,
want to
yeah.
do the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, we are the parenting experts,
Yep.
Jessica. Next question. How would you react if you knew you were about to die? You're on your deathbed.
Jesus.
And I know, very optimistic questions here.
In 2016, that's not an okay question to ask because it's hitting too close to. Okay,
It's
so sorry.
probably
I'm sorry.
January 1st.
So if I
You're about to die. You're on your deathbed. You've been an atheist your whole life.
Uh-huh.
How do you react at that point? I'm going to open a can of
okay.
Coke.
So, God, my instinct is to do like a deathbed conversion just to kind of fuck with people, but I don't think that's the answer. People
Best
are
podcast
I
episode
know,
ever.
we're
By the
so-
way, I'm going to have recording equipment at your deathbed.
Oh, you should record my death rattle. God, that was weird. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, I just think I'm actually like I'm kind of dealing with like my grandmother is pretty ill right now, so there's a lot of thought about like how do you treat somebody who's coming to the end of their life, especially when their mental health is slipping, things like that. So for me, if I found out I had a terminal disease tomorrow, you know, I'm 31 years old and this is how I'm gonna die, I think there would be an element of like reconnecting with as many people as I could. You know, making sure that what you leave behind is as not burdensome as possible. Kind of remembering that life goes on after you're done. So getting your affairs in order, which isn't romantic, but it's a very practical thing to do. Making sure you're an organ donor. all that
Make sure all my bills are paid.
Well, I mean, really, like the last thing you want to do is like croak, and then someone's like, "Oh, she has $50,000 worth of debt that goes." I don't know how money works, but I'm
Yes.
sure somebody has to pay it. But yeah, to me, the important things in life are almost always centered around people. So for me,
It
would
sounds
be-
like what you're not saying is you're going to change your mind about, you know, the religion issue.
well,
It-
because at what point, what good is that going to do?
right. It sounds very practical, which is to say, no, I'm still an atheist, but the whole kind of philosophy behind that is I want to make sure I lived my best life
Yeah.
while I'm alive, and let me tie up loose ends. Let me see the people that meant a
Right.
lot to me because I won't get to anymore.
Because I guess I don't understand. I kind of do. Thinking about like, oh, okay, I can go through my life and be like, I don't believe in heaven and I don't believe in hell. But when I'm really faced with it, when push comes to shove, am I comfortable saying, okay, I'm about to die and that's like the end? So I understand, I understand what that question is kind of getting at, but I guess I just don't see how that would help any. Even in my last 30 seconds, I was like, oh, maybe. But the thing here, okay, here's the thing. If you all of a sudden say you do your deathbed conversion and say, oh my God, I'm a Christian, I believe in Christ. I haven't been going to church my whole life, so it's not like I'm a shoo-in to go to heaven.
Oh, no, I think they would say if you accepted Christ at any point on your deathbed, for reals, then that's all that matters.
See, I hate that because
It's a loophole.
it is a loophole.
That's why the mass murderers get to go to heaven if they accept Jesus. That's why Anne Frank's burning in hell, unless she accepted Jesus while the Nazis came after her.
Who is it? Some serial killer.
All of them.
One of them particularly. Was it Ted Bundy? That motherfucker.
That one of them converted, like, at the
he
very
was
end
like
of his life.
anti-pornography. And then
I
he,
remember
like,
James Dobson interviewed, the Focus on Family guy,
Yes.
interviewed one of them. It might have been him, I'm not
that
sure.
was Ted Bundy, but I'm not sure if this is who I'm thinking of. And this is so beside the point, but there's a podcast I listened to called Last Podcast on the Left, and they did this recording of him, this murderer, being like, before he gets sentenced to death, being like, I found Christ and I've learned to forgive myself and I just have to blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's really fucking nice for you, but I'm sure the 20 kids you
Right.
killed aren't super forgiving of
Which-
you, but like, I'm super glad you can sleep at
Which,
night,
if
guy.
Christians have it right, he's going to see those kids that he killed in heaven, which is fucked up
Oh my God, I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's messed up on a lot of levels. They never get to that question when they talk about it in religious class.
Okay, I don't want to get it. Yay.
But yeah, that's the idea, that you can accept
Ew, and
God.
his heaven is that he can like have access to murder people as often as.
Ew.
Weird.
Oh, that's scary. Have fun, kids in heaven.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, we
What
need
was the
to.
question?
Well, there's no question anymore. You've gone past whatever the question. No, okay. If we're going back to you're on your deathbed, yeah. If you convert at any point on your deathbed,
Right.
You're
Then
going to
technically
heaven
you're
technically,
absolved.
according to
And this is
Protestants.
Christianity, right?
Yeah.
All.
They don't care about what you did in your life. So.
Doesn't feel like a super.
But it seems, I think the people who ask these questions, like, what would you do on your deathbed? You're dying or something. Maybe Christopher Hitchens changed his mind. Or something. They always presume we've never thought about these things until that very moment.
Right,
Like no, pretty much everyone I know who's put some thought into this has considered, what happens when things get really shitty in life?
Well,
Is that going to change my mind? And they've already concluded, no, there are rational explanations for this. I think when my life is over, it's over. Like, it's not like you're going to come across some epiphany in your dying moments that you never thought about until that time.
Yeah, no, and especially when you think of a Christopher Hitchens type who was facing his own mortality for a long time before he eventually died. It's not like he got a diagnosis and died the next day, or was in a terrible accident and
he had
died.
plenty of time to think about
a lot of time
this
to
issue.
Consider what was going
Right.
on. Also, can I say the creepiest thing? Do you ever think about like when we're dead, like this podcast is going to be on forever? So like,
creepy.
Isn't that weird? So people will be like, "Oh, these assholes were talking into a microphone 200 years ago." Ugh.
They could have just used
like the
plug the
permanency of the
USB
internet.
port into their brain, and that's how I get my podcast. Hello, people of 2022, no, 2200,
math
whatever
guy?
year. I don't know. Not for years.
22.
Whatever year it is.
2216.
But yeah, it's just a weird question to ask if people will convert. One, because it's so rare. I can't remember anyone who's actually converted on their deathbed. Like, if it happens, it's super rare. It doesn't speak for other people.
Or I wonder if it does happen, if it's more of a you're not all mentally there, or you're trying to appease grieving family members, or people will do a lot of weird shit to not cause friction.
Right.
So
the one time, the time I've heard it cited often is there was this...
Darwin?
That's the urban legend that
Right.
Darwin did it. That's false.
Right.
But there was a guy, Antony Flew, a philosopher, who they say converted in his, dying days. And all he really said was, or maybe, I don't know if it was on his dying days, but late in life, after being a vocal atheist for a long time. And basically all he said is, it seems like there could be a good reason to believe God created the world, because I don't have a good answer for that. So he's a deist. God created the world, but he's not answering your prayers. There's no miracles going on nowadays. It's very different from whatever, evangelicals believe. And yet that was somehow supposed to be proof to atheists that they should change their minds too, which is ridiculous. Richard Dawkins has said, if he's on his deathbed, he's going to have a recorder set up just so everyone knows he was still an atheist
do you think he'll
until
hire us to record?
Done.
That's the most grim thing.
It's so nice to meet you on.
You've met Richard Dawkins before.
I've met him a couple times.
I made eye contact with him briefly.
I've met him a couple times. We've talked very little. I
Wow.
don't know. Just the circumstances didn't really allow for a conversation.
Speaking of deism, I'm reading the Hamilton biography right now.
Yeah.
And there was so little talk of religion. And granted, this is a very singular view. But, people argue whether the Founding Fathers were Christian or not. But I think it's inarguable that wasn't weighed into the Constitution.
They weren't really talking about God
Right.
and all that stuff while they were writing the Constitution.
Yeah, which I think most atheists know, unless you're like a David Bartman, who is not an atheist, but a religious historian.
David Barton, who says everyone's always Christian all the time and whatever.
That guy's the pits.
He just makes things up.
Yeah, no, he really does. But anyway, that's completely off topic, but it's just something I've been thinking about.
Okay. And by the way, all that conversation we just had could also answer another question, which is, are there atheists in foxholes? Because some people say if you're in the military, if you're doing something where you put your life at stake, you have to believe in God, because why would you do that otherwise? And it's the same thing.
Which
people can give their lives for a good cause because they believe in something has nothing to do with God. There are plenty of atheists in the military and policemen, firemen, whatever.
That's what I was just about to say. Like, that's insulting to any atheist who's served, who deserves just as much credit or whatever. That said, also that implies that like the military is the only place where people put themselves in high risk positions. Because like you said, like policemen, firemen, all that kind of thing. Like people are doing dangerous work every day, and not even like super noble work. Like people who work in factories, maybe not as much now. They're much safer now, but like people are dying all the fucking time, and like to imply that the military is the only dangerous place in the world. And I'm not trying to discredit people who are serving because it's super dangerous and
people are doing a lot of dangerous things all the time. Doesn't mean they're not atheists or something. So, okay, here's the next question. I'm going to read this one as it's written. Sometimes I feel like I'm too strident when speaking out against religion. I live in the Bible Belt now. It's had a direct effect on my relationships here. No matter how friendly or kind I am, my atheism scares people. So what do you do in that situation? If you're, let's say, in the Bible Belt and somewhere really religious, should you speak out as an atheist?
Okay, so my answer is skewed because I'm a loud asshole. And so I am very much of the mindset that if you are in a position that you're not going to be harmed, and by that I mean nobody's going to physically hurt you, you're not going to lose your home if you're, a kid living with your parents or your education.
And sadly, there are places where that could happen.
100%. But that's also why I think people like that are the reason it's important that people like you and I speak out, because there aren't really
we don't
direct
have the same
consequences
barriers.
To me speaking my mind, and that, works its way out, like whatever. So I can relate to this because I feel very similar in regard to my feminism, that and it's not to say that feminism isn't generally accepted, but when I am doing my rants about how white men ruin everything, which, there's an
screw white men, they're not me.
No, but just things like that. Things like when you're looking at what's going on and it's just like white men who have their head up their own asses, and it's not exclusive, and it's not, but it's things like that I'm like, fuck it. Like, you guys keep fucking it up. Can you hand over the wheel? And people shockingly don't like that.
What?
I don't know. I can't imagine why. And I've definitely...
So has that made you shut up about it more?
No.
Okay.
It's made people like me less.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I'm not
because the people who would... Well, I mean, the people who wouldn't like you for saying those things are probably not people you care to be close with, I would assume.
Right. And yes, I think that's accurate. And I know what I think is, or what I'll vocalize is more extreme, but it's just something I'm really aware of, and I see it affecting my everyday life. The way I'm sure this letter writer, Facebook poster, probably sees...
So you're cognizant of it. You're not necessarily going to bring it up all the time, or at least you're aware that if I bring this up now, and I want to... it may change our relationship.
Yes, and to some extent you have to pick and choose, because I've never been great at agree to disagree. That's really
no. We're gonna finish this now.
But at the same time, I understand that like you still have to interact with people who disagree with you, and so you have to keep certain barriers up, and you can't be completely outspoken about everything all the time, because nobody wants that guy at the party.
Right. I've always been under the mindset that, I mean, it's been said before, but there's no nice way to tell people they're basing their life on a lie. There's no right way to tell people you're an atheist, because you're going to offend someone just by...
our very existence offends a lot of people, which is too bad.
So I don't think the issue is, that you're not friendly or kind about it. There's no nice way to say you're an atheist in among certain people.
Right.
So there's that. I mean, there's no nice way to say it. So the question is, do you mention it at all? And I agree with you that, look, if you're going to be putting yourself in harm's way, if you're going to be hurting relationship, like should you come out to your parents as an atheist?
Right.
Look, if you live under their roof and you're dependent on them for financial support, don't be an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, there's an element of self-preservation that we all have to do.
I mean, believe me, I was that kid where I'm like, I don't want, I'm living here. It's going to make my life hell if my parents think I'm an atheist for a while anyway. Even though I really wanted to come out because I want to be honest about it.
Right.
But again, don't be dumb about it. There's a time and place when at least you're on your own and they can't hurt you.
Yeah.
Not physically, but just emotionally,
Or
financially, whatever.
physically, yeah.
Maybe physically. But yeah, like, wait if you need to. If your kids are going to school in the South or something, maybe that's not the time for you to speak out because it might affect them. Same type of issue, which is if this is going to come back to bite me in the ass, or if it's going to affect how my kids have to deal with, especially if it's going to affect your kids, maybe it's not the right way to do it. So a couple things I would add to that. If you are speaking out about like a legal issue or something, you see church-state separation violated. You know, what I've constantly told people is if you see a violation, you know, get documentation, take a picture, what have you, send it to an organization like Freedom from Religion Foundation, American Humanist Association. They have legal teams. They will send a letter on your behalf without mentioning you.
Right.
The only time your name has to come up is if there is a lawsuit filed. But most of the time that does not happen.
Sure.
They settle it. It's not an issue. No money is exchanged. It's all good. So that's one option. But the other one is, look, if someone asks you, I would just play it safe. I mean, I do this now, and I do this for a living, more or less. You know, it's if people say, "Oh, what do you believe? What are you an atheist? Whatever." Yeah, I don't believe in God, or no, yeah, I don't really talk about religion with you. Like I will talk about religion on the computer, but like not with most people.
Yeah,
I don't want to have this conversation with other people.
Right, and I think there's an element of not wanting to, again, not wanting to cause friction where it's not necessary.
Right.
But I also think that I don't know, for me, if somebody asks me if I'm religious, I feel really comfortable saying, no, I'm an atheist. Like, that's never, for a long time, I'd say, oh, I don't go to church, or oh, I don't believe in God. Or, you know, something that's a little more, like, cushiony, because the atheist word scares people.
And let me add on to that. I'm with you. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm obviously not
but
worried about saying people I'm an atheist. But the reason I say that is because I do still have I coach a team at a local high school. I have a lot of connections to those kids and their parents. I don't want my beliefs and all the stuff we talk about here affecting what I do there. Those are separate worlds for me.
Right.
So of course, when they bring it up, I'm gonna change the conversation. I don't want to talk about it with you.
Yes.
Everywhere
Context
else
is key here.
Right, context is key. Everywhere else, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
You know, my close friends know about it. It's fine. But yeah, just to add on to that, context matters.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, here's the next question.
All right.
Someone wanted to know how you respond to this question. How am I supposed to live knowing I will never see my grandbabies in heaven? Or how will you live knowing you will never see your grandkids in heaven? Because if you don't believe in heaven, and if you're an atheist, you're not going to see all your loved ones again. I presume that's the question. You know, how do you get through the day knowing that if your parents have died, if your grandparents have died, maybe if your kids have died, that's it. You're not going to see them in heaven. At least with religious people, you have hope that even when you die, you will be reunited. I mean, we just saw this week with Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds.
God.
Hey, 2016. But
I sat on my couch and cried about Debbie Reynolds.
I think
that was a hard one.
I don't know if it was her Debbie Reynolds' son who said this, but someone said
she wanted to see Carrie.
She wanted to see Carrie again, so of course, and as a mother, of course, it's like now I can go. Maybe there's that sentiment to it, but the nice sentiment that makes no sense is that she wanted to be reunited in heaven or something. Okay, fine. How do you get through the day knowing if you suffered such a loss, that's not going to happen?
So I've actually had this question. This is one of the few questions that's really been posed to me in real life, in the wild. I was obviously at a bar, as I'm wont to do, and this woman I was talking to is Catholic and takes her religion very seriously. And so I completely will say I was kind of an asshole about it because I forget how important people's religions are to them, and I kind of look at it like it's an anthropological thing. So I'm like, oh, well, if you're Catholic, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And it was me being sincerely trying to get information, but I was doing so very callously, and it was a poor judgment on my part. That said, she asked me the same thing, and my answer was that, 7 years ago now, a really close friend of mine died. He and I we worked in Montana together. We were very close. He was a Baptist, very religious. And we had some of my, to this day, some of my favorite religious discussions because we were mutually respectful. And just, he had never met an atheist before, you know? So anyway, so he died unexpectedly. And it crushed me. Like, I was crushed. And the way... I've accepted that I'll never see him again, which isn't anything that brings me comfort. But because I feel sure that it's very unlikely that I'll ever see my friend again, I try to keep his memory alive by sharing stories about things we did together or experiences we had together or things that he taught me or things that I felt like I taught him. And to me, that's more important. Like, if I died tomorrow, I would hope that my memory would live on through the people I've affected.
Right. And I wonder if there's any inclination for people not to, if your friend passed away, it's like, I want to keep that memory alive. I'm going to be proactive and do things to make sure that memory stays alive. And I wonder if you were religious thinking, I'll see him soon. You may not want, you don't think you need to do all those things, preserve that memory.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's true. I was just watching a documentary on Netflix. It's called Witness. Have you heard of it?
No.
Do you know who Kitty Genovese is?
Yes, the New York woman who was...
So she famously, in the 1960, I want to say-ish, she was murdered in Queens in New York. And this very famous article came out in the New York Times called 38 Witnesses, or 39 Witnesses, 38, I think. And what they were saying was there were 38 witnesses to this woman's brutal attack, and nobody did anything. So this documentary is about Kitty Genovese's younger brother, who just wants to find out what happened. And, like, did people really do nothing? And this is before 911 was a thing, so, like, calling the police wasn't a simple thing. So anyway, all that is to say that when this young woman died, because it was such a tragic and such an unexpected death, the family didn't go to the trial of her murderer, and this guy who's now in his 60s or 70s was saying, we never talked about her. So her memory very much died with her. And so all of a sudden, because of this documentary, he's talking to his own kids and saying, oh, did you know that Kitty was XYZ? And did you know she liked to do this? And all of a sudden, they feel like
they know her too.
They know her again. Because I just think I know they were a Catholic family, and I'm sure it's more the circumstances of the tragedy than necessarily the
But yeah, I wonder how many religious families may just think, you're going to see Grandpa again.
Right.
Here's the pictures. That's kind of, we don't talk about it that much because we'll see him soon.
And I could be completely extrapolating off something that isn't necessarily a religious thing, quote unquote, but I don't know that, because I would rather keep my loved ones close to me today and think about them and remember them and share stories about who they were and who they meant to me than hope in the back of my head that I'll see them again and could be wrong.
And, George Carlin had this long bit in one of his last stand-up special that was more or less like, and who are you even going to see in heaven? I'm totally paraphrasing, so of course I'm butchering
you're nailing it.
But who are you going to see? Are you going to see their old selves? Or are you going to see them as younger selves? Like, they're not going to, they
Julia
wouldn't
Sweeney
be the same as the memory you have of them, per se.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Move on. How would you teach your children? This is from someone who was asked this by someone who was religious. They didn't know how to answer necessarily. How are you going to teach your children morality without religion?
I don't know. Don't be an asshole for like a second, and I bet they'll figure it out.
There's so many snappy answers to this that are which is
I like mine.
I like yours too. How are you going to teach your kids morality with religion? Because the Bible's full of crazy shit. I think we posted a meme on the Facebook page or something that said, if you had a robot that lived in your house whose only programming was do everything the Bible says, would you want that Bible? Would you want that robot in your house?
Bible robot, a Bibot.
Ew.
That's my best work.
I like it.
Robo.
But it's weird to think, because if you're teaching your kids, you shouldn't lie or, don't steal from other people. Why not? Because the Bible says so. That's the shittiest reason to not steal from someone else.
And this is another thing that's well-worn ground, but saying if the only reason you're not killing somebody is because your religion, then that's not like what morality is. That's just fear of punishment.
Right.
Like, I do good things for people because that's the world I want. I want to live in a world where people do nice things. Like, I go and volunteer at a therapeutic writing center because I want to help those kids, and those kids' days are made better, and that makes me feel better. So, like, everybody's winning.
Right.
Instead of I'm like keeping track in the back of my head of like, do I have enough tally points to make it up to heaven or whatever?
Right.
I find it to be a really disingenuous question.
Yeah,
because I don't think people believe that.
And I don't think a lot of religious people are teaching their kids to be good people for the only reason because God said so.
I mean,
like, that's a horrible way to teach kids to do anything.
Right,
and you're right,
like,
it is fear.
Like the elf on the shelf thing, and even to some extent, like that kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies because that is just saying like somebody is watching you, and that's why you should do the right thing, not
do the right thing because it's the right thing, because it's a better world, because just follow the golden rule. That's what everyone believes anyway, or at least in theory, that's what they say they believe.
I heard somebody else.
And by the way, the same person who asked that question pointed out correctly.
Should we be giving people credit or not?
I didn't write down their names. There were so many, and again, a lot of these were the same question. So I got this one. All right, cool. There's like 18 people who asked it. The religious community I grew up in, I'm quoting this person, the religious community I grew up in has produced numerous pedophiles, people who sell drugs to kids, and at least one murderer. Point being, you could be raised in a religious community. It doesn't mean everyone's going to turn out okay, which is the point.
So I think the idea that just because you're religious means you're necessarily moral has been so widely debunked, it's kind of laughable at this point because we have very specific cases of religious leaders, even will say, like, not even just somebody who says they believe in God, because fuck if everybody's always going to say, like, oh, they're not, like, they're doing the no true Scotsman thing, right? Like, oh, they weren't praying to God.
They weren't real Christians or something.
But if you want to extrapolate up to, again, well-worn ground, but like Catholic priests are doing some terrible shit.
Let's play a game. It's called, hey, name one religious leader who's ever done something immoral, unethical, against the law. And now, try to name an atheist who has done something equally reprehensible. I'm just saying the first question's way easier to answer. It's not that atheists are perfect. We're not.
Well,
but like,
speak for yourself.
But I promise you, there is a long list of religious leaders who sincerely believed whatever it is they were preaching.
Yeah, I was having
who have done bad things.
A discussion with somebody about. So there was a new article that was put out about pedophiles. So the idea is like there are pedophiles.
This is a weird Google alert you have.
Okay. The thing is, it's even weirder because I definitely found it on a page that I follow for like a murder podcast. So like, it's not better. It's not better the way I found it.
Continue.
Anyway, I'm fine. So they're saying, okay, there are people who are saying like, I have these pedophilic urges, and and the idea is like, can we find these people and give them the appropriate therapy or give them the tools they need as to not harm people? And somebody was just furious about this idea of like, no, they're just assholes who are...
They're horrible people.
They're just
we need
bad
to
people. We need
lock them up or something.
Exactly. And my response to that and to many of these issues would be, we've tried that for a long time. We've tried telling people not to steal and not to kill and not to hurt children for a long time, and it hasn't gone great. So either we need to just accept that this is a part of, and I would say the same thing
that people are going to do bad things.
Right. And I would say this is a similar argument with the gun thing. Mm-hmm. Is, okay, we've had this in place for a minute, and this is the result. I think we could do better. I think we could reduce gun deaths. I think we could reduce instances of children being harmed. But we have to agree that we want to collectively help this, and that some things are worth sacrificing. So for me, and that's super easy for me to say, that I would rather not have a gun in my house and quote-unquote feel unsafe, which is another conversation for another day, than risk not even somebody shooting up a place, some toddler getting their hands on a gun and shooting themselves or their family.
So let's live with the fact that, there is going to be some horrible stuff going on in the world. Let's work to reduce it as much as we can.
Right.
But religion's not going to solve this problem.
Yeah. Are you saying that it got off the track? Of
No.
what we're talking about?
I'm just trying to corral it back.
Well,
that is my job here.
I think it's more, I think it's more in line with skepticism than it is necessary with atheism, because I think those are other elements of like, if you look at the facts and you take away like the impassioned pleas and you take away everything else and just look at, okay, here's what we have, here's the problem, how do we solve it? Statistics say you're more likely to shoot yourself or a family member in your house than a burglar. Okay, if we can get people to accept that, and I think that's, to me, what a lot of skepticism is about, is sometimes it's not pretty or romantic, and sometimes you have to acknowledge that there's more world around than you, and what you want isn't necessarily what's best for the collective, which is very, very communistic sentiment I'm rolling in. Anyway, that's what I have to say.
Excellent. Simple question, one that we faced many times, but what if you're wrong?
Sorry. No, I seriously, like, what the fuck would I do? What would I do? I've lived my entire life with the active search for what is truth and what is real and what can I count on. And time and again, it's shown that there is nothing supernatural, that there's nothing beyond... I shouldn't say there's nothing beyond what we can see, because that's obviously fallacious, but there's nothing beyond the natural world that we can see. So the idea that the way for me to be a good person is to put my blind faith in something because I'm told to me is sad almost, in a way, of the measure of me as a person isn't, did I do the most good for the most people? It is, did I blindly put my faith in a thing that I had no hard evidence of?
Right. Why would I start believing in what I think is nonsense just because of that remote possibility or something? Like, no, I mean, if you're going to punish me for daring to question and challenge, most people don't think about this stuff. Most people will never ask, the question whether God exists. They will accept it because it's what they've been taught and be done with it. Like, I'm not ever going to be upset that I dared to question it or think about it or anything. So, like, what if I'm wrong? Like, then what's God going to be mad at? That I looked for the answer? That's crazy. I mean, what sort of messed up God would believe in that stuff? More importantly, and this is the common response to this, it's, what if you're wrong? You're believing in this one God who does everything. What if Hindus are right? Man, you're all screwed. And just to be clear, like, even if we're doing numbers and stuff worldwide, Christians are still in the minority. Like, they're 30-some% of the world, and Muslims are like 20-some% of the world. Like, we're all in the minority with whatever it is we think is right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So the odds that you're right and everyone else is wrong, I mean, that's the question I always want to kind of throw back.
And that you're staking your eternal life on this,
right?
And it's something that I feel like people struggle with kind of circumstantial things. So the fact that I was born to Italian and Irish parents means if they were religious, I would have been raised Catholic,
right?
Not because my parents did some like real hard hitting, research and sought their truth and explored all of the possible religions. They were just born into Catholic families.
Right. It's circumstance. I mean, it's not because one group of people magically stumbled upon all the right answers. That's silly. Okay, here's a different question altogether. Should you just, if your family wants you to baptize your kids or go through those religious rituals and you and your spouse don't believe in this stuff, should you just go through with it to keep the peace?
That I'm living proof that that's not going to do a ton, because I was baptized to
non-religious really parents.
Yeah.
And religious grandparents.
And I was told at like 10 that I was baptized to shut my grandmother up.
Did it work? Did your grandmother shut up?
No, of course she did.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I guess it's what you're willing to, because I mean, okay, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe baptism hurts anybody.
Right.
But I think there is inherent harm in sort of inundating your kid into, I don't know. See, I wouldn't do it. Again, like, I really have to keep coming back. Like, I'm a huge asshole. And I can't emphasize that enough because I would never do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like, no, fuck off. Like, this is my human child. And I'm going to keep it alive and not, like, douse it in water. I think it's what baptism.
I'm not going to throw the fire hose on my infant.
Do you dunk them or do you pour water on them?
It depends. You could do the full body baptism. You could do sprinkling on the head. Some of them don't count, and if you do it wrong, you're going to hell. But, like, you got to do it right.
Dunk them in a river or whatever. So, yeah, so to me, I would say absolutely not. Like, no, who cares? Like, they can... unless, again, there's a question of, are you relying on your parents for childcare, or are you relying on your parents for financial aid?
This is the atheist version of the Gilmore Girls. Then you go ahead and do it and get the money.
Gilmore Girls is such a good metaphor. So, like...
You're welcome.
This is really exciting. So
I didn't binge watch it the moment it came out on Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay, we have to talk about that off mic.
All right.
Or on mic. Off mic. So, like, Emily and Richard their dinner at Sunday nights is church. And
if you want money from us, you have to come every week.
Which, I'm going to be honest, I would. I'm not coming off super great. But, like, if those were the stakes, if the stakes were you do this or you don't get an education
or you're not part of the will.
I mean, at what...
Like, if your grandparents said, you got to send your kid to Catholic school, we'll pay the tuition.
See, that's different.
Different circumstance now?
I think so. Because I think being baptized is passive, and it's not a thing your kid's probably going to remember, assuming you do it pretty early.
Right.
And therefore, it's not really doing anything. Like, if you don't believe in the magic of baptism...
It's just a waste of your time for a little bit. It's not... That's the end of it.
Yeah, you dress up, like, people hold your baby, and I don't know.
Right. I'll push back.
Catholic school is... that is shaping your child's outlook and their future and their education. Like, their early education is important.
Right. And to be fair, Catholic school, I mean, is not as bad as, say, some private evangelical school or something. I mean, there are degrees here. Catholic schools, for the most part, they do a good job of educating your kids. But you're right, indoctrination is a part of that, too. Right. And we all know a lot of atheists who went to Catholic school, too. But yeah, I mean, it's a different story if they're going to pay for stuff, if they have you on the line, you know, for so, other things.
I guess this hypothetical situation is you live in a place where the public schools are really subpar, and
they're helping you out.
They're helping you out. Fuck, I don't know. I mean,
so let me take it out of that realm for a second. Let me go back to the baptism question because I think my answer would be slightly different, which is to say, I don't care. Maybe this is a weird answer coming from me. I don't really care about the baptism, but I wonder if that sends the message that we will bend over backwards for religious ritual. And let's assume for a second everyone knows we are atheists here. Sure. This isn't a secret because that's a different issue. If they know I'm an atheist, would I still go through with it? Maybe because maybe it's seen as disrespectful. Maybe it's like, well, like you said, it's not going to do anything.
Right.
So whatever, I'll waste a little bit of my time. But here's what I'm worried about. I would be worried that they're going to want more from your kids. They're going to want you to keep saying yes to other religious things that are probably not seen as a big deal. And that's where I get worried about.
All of a sudden you're getting married in a Catholic church and you have to obey your husband.
I mean, we actually did this, which is, you know, when I got married, my parents wanted a religious ceremony. Yeah. It's like, I will, as long as the wedding is something we plan, like I plan and my wife plans and stuff, it's like, I will give you this little party if you want to have a religious one because you're not getting the wedding.
Right.
So I don't care. You can have that.
Well, and you did the invitation thing for them, right?
I think, we made a little religious invitation too, just to appease them because I didn't care.
Right.
But we kind of went into it saying like, look, it's not going past this. We're not doing anything else. And the same thing I would think is the advice I would give to other people, which is, your parents, your family, they kind of need to know what the boundaries are.
It's same as like with kids.
If
Like you
they're gonna-
set boundaries. And
If your family, extended family, is going to indoctrinate your child, like, here, grandparents want to see their grandkid. Fine, I'll leave my grandkid with you. But if I find out you're indoctrinating them, you don't get access to them. That's the leverage you have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to find a way to set the boundaries. Now, if they're holding something over you, like an inheritance or whatever, now you got to reconsider because now there's strings
everything.
attached, and now it's a little harder. But it's a
which it's sad that that's what it comes to, you know? Like you have a parent or whatever.
this is what happens when religious people. That's morality and religion for you.
Yeah.
We'll hold this over your head just so you do what we say.
Yeah.
Jesus loves you. All right. Here is a totally different question. Totally different type. How can I help the most people when atheists don't have a community? The idea here being, even if you want to give to charity, churches give you a way to do that. And I don't mean tithing to the church or giving money to them, but if you want to give money to charity, to a good cause, churches are a great way of facilitating that. And there have been studies to show this. Religious people are often get into a habit of giving money, donating, making that a part of their lives. Atheists don't have the infrastructure or the vehicle to do that. It's part of why I used to belong with an organization called Foundation Beyond Belief. It was a way to get atheists to give to charity. So what do you do if you don't have that atheist community, but you still want to help a lot of people? What's the best way to do it?
God, I mean, you do have to make some amount of effort. Like,
it's not going to be handed to you. Like, show up
Right.
and we'll take care of everything.
but I mean, if this person feels like it's something that it doesn't occur to them unless they make something a ritual, there are ways to, like, I donate $20 a month to Planned Parenthood. It just gets pulled out of my checking account. I don't have to think about it. I get a nice email from them every month saying, like, thanks for your donation. I'm like, oh yeah, I helped. So that is something I would say if they feel like they're not...
So find a way to give to the organizations, causes you care about.
Right, without having to make an effort, if that's what is holding you back.
Right.
I would... So I started, when I moved out, excuse me, I moved out to the suburbs a couple of months ago, and I started getting back into volunteering with it's a therapeutic riding center. It's called the Hansen Center. If anybody wants to donate to them, they do therapeutic horseback riding for special needs children and adults, whether they have physical or emotional or mental disabilities. It's an incredible program. Horses are very expensive to upkeep, so they always need money. So it's the Hansen Center. They're with the Ray Graham Association. Anyway, I got in the habit. I wanted to start doing volunteer work again because it was too far for me to do it from the city. And so I showed up and I did the training thing, and I go there every Monday at 3. And you have to make yourself held accountable to something. So I think if you sort of back, like the same way you go to church every Sunday, right? And that's where you do your donating, and that's where you do your good deeds toward the community or whatever. I think holding yourself accountable is really important. And it's the same, honestly, it's the same thing for, like, I wish I worked out more. Well, if I sign up for a class, I have to be there once a
Right.
week at this time, right? Like, I'm hurting other people actively if I don't show up. Not hurting, but... So
yeah, I mean, so you have to be proactive about it and
do have
make
to be
sure
proactive.
that you are helping the causes you care about, because no one's going to organize it all for you
Yeah.
when you're an atheist.
Or even little things help. Like Amazon Smile is a thing I try to do. I think it goes.
So when you make Amazon purchases, a portion goes
it's
to
like
certain charities.
0.5% of your purchase goes to the charity of your, and you can pick your charity. So I just do, I think, the Red Cross.
Yeah,
or something
credit
like
cards do the same thing, certain
Yes.
ones. And I've also heard a really good piece of advice for parents who want to instill that in their kids, but they don't go to church
Mm-hmm.
every week, which is if you give them an allowance of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'll give you whatever, I don't know what's normal, $20 a week or something, but most of that's going to charity, but you get to choose where it goes. Just so
yeah.
your kids get in the habit of saying, I care about this group and I want to give money to them. And that's fine.
Or there's always, if you work in an office, a lot of companies will either match donations, or you can say, hey, can you give your employees a half a day off, and we're all going to volunteer at the food bank or something like that. There's places, if you feel like you need the communal vibe to sort of get you in the habit, then schedule a blood drive at your work. I've done that. Like, get them, run a charity 5K with your friends, like train together. Like, there's ways you can kind of instill your own sense of community without that sort of churchy aspect and without giving money to the church. But yeah, you had to be proactive. Like, sorry, it's not.
That's the hard part.
It's not going to be as easy. I wish there was a way from. I mean, although I would say send an automatic, if you can afford it, send an automatic donation to Planned Parenthood or
whatever groups you care about. And I would say also, give to Foundation Beyond Belief. They're there specifically to facilitate questions like this.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to give as atheists, and it's kind of cool or Kiva or any of those micro lending sites too. It's cool to be part of an atheist group that's doing good work, because you're killing two birds with one stone. You're giving to good causes, and you're saying, hey, look, atheists can be generous too.
And I wonder if this person is hoping to do good work in the name of atheism. I wonder if that's part of it too.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to assume the answer is just no. I just don't have a church to give through, so I want to know what's the best way to do it. And like you're saying, do it yourself, or you can find other organizations that'll help you do it.
Yeah.
That don't have to be church. They're out there, but you have to look for them. All right, I got two more questions. One is, why are atheists so angry?
I'm angry literally all the time. I yell so... No.
That is the stereotype.
Yeah. I mean, Greta Christina kind of cornered this one.
Right. And she wrote a book about it where she explained it. But this is a fair question. And let me play... I don't want to say devil's advocate. Let me explain the question, which is that, usually when you see atheists on TV, when you hear them in the media, even if you read them in the newspaper, they're usually not there because it's a happy story. It's usually because they're playing defense or they're filing a lawsuit or something like that. There's reason to have that perception, if you're an outsider who doesn't pay attention to this stuff, that, man, every time I see an atheist, they're always pissed off about something, or they're filing a lawsuit, or they're angry about that stuff. Why is that?
Here's the thing, is I think it's a fundamentally dishonest question. I think it's intellectually dishonest. I think that if anybody actually interacted with somebody who is an atheist, or just like put some thought into it, it's not like we all sit in our couches and grumble and shake our fists at Fox News, although I do that sometimes. But I think it's an intellectually dishonest question. I think that whoever is actually posing that question knows that they're full of shit. They know that. They know we don't just yell at people all day. But it's the same
people who think you live these immoral, sad lives because God's not part of it.
I sit in the dark and cry.
That is the default setting.
Yeah, exactly.
For atheism.
And to kind of loop it into the last question about charitable giving, what I would say to somebody who actually has posed that question, which bugs me and I think it's a shitty question, I would say, the best way to like dispel that kind of myth is to show up in your life and be a nice person and be nice to other people and give to charity. And then if somebody asks what church you belong to, oh, I'm an atheist. Oh, hey, there's an example of a person who I know and like. Because that's very sincerely, when I lived in Montana, I know I've talked about it before. When I lived in Montana, I was like the atheist. I was known, I was like reading the God Delusion. I was kind of leaning into it. But so all of a sudden,
the village atheist. That is you.
As a village atheist and the village singer, so two facets. But I would get to know people, and it was a very religious, very small town. Wonderful, kind people, and they liked me sometimes. And when they found out as an atheist, I was the person. I was like a real person instead of like this weird stereotype they thought of.
Which is nice. That's always nice when you can break that stereotype for them. I mean, I would add a couple things, which is when you see atheists who are angry, it's usually because that's the only thing we get coverage for, which is to say fighting church-state separation battles,
and
which
we have reasons to be angry. Shit is happening that's bad that I'm going to be angry about.
Right. If you're not angry, there's a problem.
I think
about some of the things religious people do.
I think honestly that sort of why you so angry thing is applied to a lot of quote unquote others. I think it's a lot of like this sort of
Yeah, why is Black Lives Matter always
Exactly.
angry?
Why are
Because they have to be.
Why are feminists so angry? Why are atheists so angry?
Right.
Why are liberals so because we have shit to be angry about.
And it's funny because, and you mentioned this, if you go to a group of atheists or a gathering of atheists where we're amongst ourselves and talking about other things, yeah, it's not angry.
Mm-hmm.
People are genuinely happy-go-lucky and fine and friendly. And this is kind of
And if
when
they're
I
not
had
friendly,
to...
that's okay. Not everybody has
Right.
to be like...
Not everyone has to be happy all the time.
Yeah,
But
anyway.
like, it's not that angry is the constant theme you see everywhere you go if you're an atheist or any of the others that you mentioned. Like, yeah, so it's very narrow-minded if anyone thinks
Yeah,
that
and
atheists are
honestly,
always
questions
angry.
like that actually do make me angry because, like, you and I both know this question is bullshit. Like, you and I know what's going on here. Why are we doing this dumb fucking charade of, oh, you guys are and Christians are so happy all the time? Like, come on, dude. Like, you know what you're doing. They know what they're doing.
We're all human. We have a range of emotions. But, I mean, this is why the site was called Friendly Atheist way
Right.
back when, because all I ever hear is angry atheists. And it's like, no, how come all the atheists I know are pretty nice people?
Right.
So I'll just make you say friendly because screw you. In retrospect, I should have just used my name or something. Friendly Atheist is stupid.
Well, you had your face up there for a long time.
Yeah, that was stupid too. No one wants to look at that. Let's just put something else. Okay, here's the last question. Two-parter.
Okay.
One, I know, Amy, we're both married, so whatever, but could you date somebody who was religious? I used to think the answer was yes, if they're not like super fundamentalist about it. Like, I don't think it would be a big deal. Like, that's something, if we could talk about it and it's not going to strain our relationship or something, like, it wouldn't bother me. I'm totally not there now. Like, I don't, even if I were like to date, like, I couldn't do that anymore. I don't feel that way. Now it's one of those things where, no, if you're religious, we are not going to get along. Even if you just believe in God and that's about as far as it goes, you don't even care about the Bible. Like, no, I don't think we would get along. I don't know.
Okay, so I feel like all things being equal, I would much rather date an atheist.
Sure. Well, I mean, you'd much rather date someone who has something you take very seriously in common with you, sure.
But, I mean...
Under what circumstances could you ever date a religious person? At this point, given whatever you've been through and, you know...
Man, I don't know. Because I don't... Here's what's happening in my head right now. I don't want to say, no, I would never date a religious person. Because, like, I feel like that's not a cute look on atheists. But at the same time, I don't think I want to.
Right.
I don't think I would. It's the same way, and I keep coming back to, like...
It's a disagreement on
thing
something so fundamental to, like, who we are now. And this is one of those things. Like, I know atheism isn't everything to everybody, even if you are an atheist. But it is for us. It's a huge part of our identity. And so seems weird to even consider being with someone who's not.
Right. Well, and I don't know about your wife, but when my husband and I started dating, he wouldn't have called himself, and I don't think he even really likes to use the word atheist.
Yeah, mine's in the same boat. Like,
he
it's...
prefers skeptic, I think. But, like, that... I do remember on, like, our second date, I asked him if he believed in evolution.
Nice.
Okay.
You know how to pick the topics for a date.
I found my bar. And my bar is you have to believe in evolution. The rest is maybe up for discussion. But I'm not going to talk to some young earther and be like, oh, what do you... Stop.
Because it
we're not
it
going
says
to
so much
museum
more.
together. This is not going to be our date.
They have a rainbow by the Noah's Ark theme park now. It's okay
They're
now.
trying to take it back. That was one of my favorite things you guys reported on in a minute. And he didn't even get the rainbow colors right.
No, he didn't. It wasn't the colors of the rainbow. They don't know what the rainbow looks like because they haven't looked at one in forever because, they'll get the gay.
God, I'm saying no, but I don't feel great about saying no. Is that an okay answer?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to ask a follow-up that my friend Jesse once asked that I never even thought about. But, okay, both of us are in this position where it's like, yeah, I don't think I could date someone who is religious at this point in my life because this is something I'm hugely invested in as an idea. And if we don't...
I don't want to go home and have the same debates I have.
Like, that's true. I don't want to deal with this.
Sometimes I just want to hang out with people who agree with me. And I know that's a really petty thing, but God, I can't always be fighting.
Here is part 2 of the question.
Oh, no.
I'm going to read this word for word.
I'm nervous.
Could you date someone who would date someone who is religious?
Yes. Yes, I could. because, okay, good. I feel better. I was really nervous about this question. Yes, I could, because while I would prefer my partner to have at least similar views to me, as me, with me.
Sure.
Uh-huh. I don't demand that they are as militant about it as I
Okay.
am. It's okay if, like, honestly, if my husband hadn't started dating me, I think he would still just be like, I don't give a fuck about religion. But because he got stuck with me, like, he has to hear all this shit over and over about, like, how mad I am, which is true. But
it was just an interesting question because you're right. It's this demanding the militancy of the person you're with. It's like, what? You could date someone who is religious?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something wrong with you. Just
Wait,
that
well,
idea.
How do you think?
No, I think I feel the same way. Like, I don't think I demand the same militancy.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's a weird word to use. We'll get shit for that. But
I like
yeah,
it.
I don't need someone to be
Bring
as
it
much
on,
of an
internet.
atheist as I am. Like, yeah, I want the person I'm with to be an atheist. I don't need them to be like, no, everyone I hang out with or whatever date.
Yeah, no, 100%.
have to be.
I mean, even like, or political views. Like, honestly, I don't know
Okay,
if I would
let me
date,
change
like,
it to that because I think that might be more pertinent to this.
Okay.
Because same reason, I'm very liberal. It's a huge part of who I am.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I could date someone who was a Republican. I could be friends with someone and have spirited debates, arguments with them, and know that we could walk away shaking hands or fine. I'm fine with that. I could see that happening. It doesn't. I don't think I have that person in my life. I'm just saying it could happen.
No, I do.
But I don't think I could date someone who was Republican. Could I date another Democrat who would say, no, I could date a Republican? Oh my God, I would be thinking, what is wrong with you? I don't know. I think I would be more militant about that than I would about because I know there are religious people out there that, you know, their religious beliefs are so benign that it wouldn't bother me if someone else was with that. But like, it's hard for me at this point, given everything the Republican Party has done, to be like, you're okay with them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
Thankfully, these aren't questions I actually have to think about.
well, no, I think, here's the thing is, so to me, and I might have said this during our drunk podcast, it got a little hazy at the end, but to me, the worst part about sort of this election season has not been, it's been the loss of honest debate. So to me, so yes, I am very liberal in many, many ways, right? But I think that our country is stronger. I think that our society is better when we are having open and honest discourse. What's happening now is we're trying to just convince people that immigrants are humans too. And like, that's not an interesting debate to be had.
That's
Because
not a
there's
debate.
because there's no other side to it. Or the
Right.
same thing like,
Well,
should
and this
women
is-
get birth control
Right.
from their insurance?
We're
Yeah,
just in our
yeah, they
bubbles.
should.
We're not having any
Right.
overlap anymore.
I don't know if I don't know.
I'm sure someone could convince me that I'm wrong on this one. Like,
Oh,
no,
they
it's not
will.
a big deal. I'm sure. That's okay. We have no listeners. It's cool.
There's like 18.
Thank you, 18 people.
We love you.
By the way, last time we were together, we talked about, hey, we should go on tour.
Oh, yeah.
And the funny thing is, we got maybe a dozen plus actual responses from people saying, if you came on tour, I would come to watch, which is very nice. And we really appreciate those comments. I sent them all to Jessica.
And I had my car packed. I was like, let's go.
The funny thing is, we got like one person emailing from like 18 different cities.
So we're going to, where are we going? Tennessee.
Yeah, we're going all over the place, but we're just
Washington.
going to have an audience of one person. So
Listen,
thank you, one person
Can
in
we
all of
crash
those
on your
cities.
couch? Because I'm about to be unemployed. Got some time on my hands.
No, you're going to be employed.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I really want to go on tour.
We will
that
work it out. Thank you,
so
one
bad.
person per city.
Yeah, no, but it really meant a lot. People were very, very kind and very nice.
We enjoy your
about our
emails.
catharsis.
Yes. And apparently everyone really appreciated the box of wine
Oh
that
my
you
God.
had.
Oh, okay.
And me, a little bit of it.
You had a little bit. I housed that thing.
They want it to be the third guest at every taping.
Oh my God, they can be. Oh, we can have
Yeah.
people on. Listen, I got a lot of hate for that boxed wine. I am telling you, Target brand wine cubes are the shit. Merlot is my jam from them. It's $17. You get 4 bottles worth. It's very well.
Is that how much is in the box?
Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't actually finish. I need to make it clear I didn't actually finish it.
You didn't,
I really
but-
need to be very clear about that. I didn't actually drink 3.5 bottles of wine. Yeah, but that was a lot of fun. I want to do more things like this.
We will.
I enjoy them.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. I hope, but
can do a part
if you
two
guys
sometime.
listen to this, we'll do a part 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your questions.
Really quick before we go, due to my pending unemployment, I'm opening an Etsy shop that I want to plug.
Please.
It's called Bitches Get Stitch Done. Don't ask. It took me a long time. A lot of punny store names are not available. So I'm selling cross stitches.
Link in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll link it. But so yeah, I'm doing like just dumb geeky stuff. So if anybody wants anything, I take requests. Please, I need to pay my mortgage.
This is a good time to bring up. We have a store full of Patreon.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
we have a store full of merchandise on the podcast website. I think it's been up there for a year. Not a single.
To be fair, I haven't bought anything.
To be fair, I haven't plugged it. It's fine.
Yeah, we should revisit that and
We
maybe
should.
like revamp what
One
we
day.
sell. Maybe that wasn't working. Got some
It's
time
all
on my
good.
hands.
It's all good.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks
we'll
so
talk
much for
to you
listening.
soon.
Bye.